Hi, I'm Nadine with Sea Dog Sit, and we are here at the Sea Dog Cabin, which is our off-site training facility. When we're not at the kennel or in public with your dogs, they come here to do a little bit of reinforcement of their training and also be able to decompress in a little bit more of a home-like setting. This video today, we're going to be talking about what you can expect from your dog after we send them home from their board and train session. Inside, we have a volunteer waiting for us, Miss Mira Jane. She's practicing her mat work. And when we go to do the send home with your dog, we're going to be placing your dog on the mat, and we are going to ask them to stay there calmly. And while we're doing this, we're going to ask that you not talk to, look at, or engage your dog in any way. We're going to use this as an example to show, for them to show the self-restraint they have learned while we discuss some paperwork and the basic functions of the training that they're going to be continuing with once they go home with you. So let's go on inside and we will continue on our way. So here you can see we have Mira Jane in her place on her mat, and we're going to ask her to stay here so that I don't have to directly supervise her while I'm going over the paperwork with you. Your dogs will be asked to demonstrate this, although maybe not with as much skill as she is showing right here. I'm very proud of my girl. When you first dropped your dog off with us, we gave you a packet with some paperwork. Hopefully everybody has read that, but we're going to go over just a couple talking points and then move on to the basic mechanics of the training. So in the paperwork, there's a couple things we're going to touch on, but we do want you to know that when you are here in the send home, we will be able to answer any questions and go over and clarify anything in the paperwork you may have come across. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the command list. And the commands are going to be pretty self-explanatory. We have sit and stay, and a stay means they should remain seated until we give them a break command. And that break command is going to be let's go, stay. I didn't want her to get up on me. So we are going to be teaching them stillness, self-restraint, and that when we put them in a sit, they should remain in that sit until they get that break command. So we're going to talk about the break command or let's go quite a bit as we're going through this process. The other commands we're going to do are here or come for recall. We will train our dogs to hear. Place is what we use for mat work, and that is what we use when we put little Miss Mira Jane here on her mat. And then load up. And load up is generally used for the car, but we will use this term anytime we want them to go up onto an elevated space, be it a box, a bench, a car, or vehicle. Anytime we ask them to move up onto an elevated surface, we will use load up. Now these are the words we use. These are the ones we're comfortable with and the ones we have trained with the dog. However, if you feel you want to change some of these commands, if you want to use come instead of here, that's fine. But make sure you make that transition early, and then you are consistent with it using the same command for the same action. So we're going to move on to our second pamphlet, which is basic obedience. And this one really applies more to puppies. But the things we're going to touch on in this pamphlet are timing, consistency, and motivation. Timing when working with puppies is more about correction. And so dogs have a period of 1.3 seconds in which to make the correlation between a correction and a command. So if your dog is having a potty accident in the house, you have 1.3 seconds in which to correct him. After that, he doesn't understand what he's being corrected for. So you literally have to catch them in the act. With our older dogs, when we talk about timing and their training, we're talking about making sure we are rewarding the appropriate action and giving them a command that cuts the energy as short as possible. All of our tools, all of our training are designed to give us a calm, manageable dog, because a calm dog is a good dog. We all want the dog that comes when called, that doesn't need a leash, that stays with us, that gives us eye contact and does what we ask it to do. They aren't born automatically knowing that. So when the verbal commands don't work, we have to use our tools in order to show them exactly how we want them to behave. And that brings us to our next paragraph, which is sit, stay, and let's go. So when the dog is not doing what you want them to do, we're going to show them exactly what we want them to do. That is the acquisition phase of training. So in the very beginning, there's going to be a lot of showing your dog exactly how we want them to behave. What I said earlier that sit should be our default kind of mode. When you ask your dog to sit, they should sit and be still. There is no squirreling around, fidgeting, jumping. We want to teach them that sit is a default behavior. Any reward they get from you should be earned, and they earn it by sitting and being calm. So you can easily practice that sitting behavior, that sit and ask behavior, 30 to 50 times a day. Now that might sound a little intimidating, but it's not about setting aside 30 minutes a day to train your dog. Every interaction with your dog is a training opportunity. I know I look at, talk to, feed, give my dog a treat, pet, interact in some way with my dog at least 50 times a day. And if I ask her to sit every time I do that, that is going to become her default behavior. And that's what we want. And again, I'm going to mention that when we put them in a sit, that sit means they remain there until we give them that break command. It goes back to that let's go. So now that we've kind of touched on some of our talking points in the paperwork, we're going to move on to showing the practical mechanism of the leash and of the training itself. Again, we will answer any questions in person at the send home, but this is just to give you a good idea of what you're going to be doing so that you can start putting it in your head, practice a little bit, so that when we send your dog home with you, you can hit the ground running. So, Mira Jane's going to be our lovely model to demonstrate our leash. When you come in, we're going to ask you to pick your leash. We have a variety of colors. I'm going to be using this lovely Dayglow orange. And you can see I just had it very conveniently draped across my body. Now, most of the dogs are going to be trained to the right. Sometimes we will train a dog to the left if there are multiple dogs, or if we're training a rescue dog in preparation to go into a home with multiple dogs. So this matters because, one, we're trying to teach the dog role identification. We remove a lot of anxiety from the animals by taking a lot of the decision-making process away. So she doesn't have to decide where to go. She only has to be on my right and just a little bit behind me. So because she's going to be on the right, the leash has to go on appropriately. So the leash should open up like a 6 that's about to eat you. So the ring should release through itself and not over itself. Really, we want there to be a smooth release whenever we're working with the leash. So you can see we have a little black rubber stopper here, and that should always be against your body whenever you're leashing your dog up. If your dog were on your left, that would be reversed. But remember, the leash should always open towards you. So the first thing you're going to do is put the transition leash in slip mode around your dog's neck. And teaching them to be still starts right here. If you are letting your dog jump and bounce and be crazy at this point in time, that's the energy they're going to carry through into the rest of their training. So from the very moment we begin interacting with our dogs, we really want to instill stillness. So once you get that leash on them, you should be able to use this leash to communicate them into a sit and have them remain calm while you continue gearing up the rest of your dog. So once you have the slip leash on and you have them in a nice quiet sit, we have a locking tab here that we're going to slip down so that this doesn't open up on us. So from this mode right here, this is considered at ease. They have a little bit of freedom, but we still have a handle on which to communicate whatever commands we want to communicate with them. Mira Jane, let's go. Sit. So when we're ready to have them go into work mode or transition mode, we are going to, first of all, take our safety tab and clip it to the dog's collar. Now this is just in case we do slip off the dog for whatever reason, we are still attached. Once we have our safety strap attached, we're going to open up our little safety tab, gives ourselves a little room to work with, and then we're going to pull our nose loop out from this little figure 8 ring right here. We get our nose loop, and if you don't give yourself enough room, you can just come over here and give yourself a little more. Over the face, and then we're going to tighten up this tab right behind the ears. The single ring should be centered between the ears, and the double ring will be centered underneath the chin. You want it to be tight enough it does not slip off their nose easily, but loose enough that you can get a couple fingers underneath. So basically, the leash becomes a way in which we communicate our commands to the dog. Pressure up is our command. The release is the reward. So whenever we're asking our dog to sit, we're going to do steady pressure up as a command to sit, and then as soon as she does so, the release will be the reward. So whenever we come off of our mat, we're going to break the energy as much as possible. So as soon as we come off our mat, we're going to have her sit and break that energy. Let's go. Pressure up to sit and release. At this point, you should be able to walk completely around your dog while they remain seated. This is a wonderful practice no matter what's going on in your life or how crazy your dog is being. This is an excellent way to help them practice self-restraint and stillness. Let's go. We also sit at every doorway. This does a couple things. This allows us to, as a woman, get in my purse, dig my keys out, unlock my door without my dog trying to run around me and cause a ruckus. Let's go. We will sit again just outside the door, again breaking the energy and allowing us to come back and close our door much more elegantly than I'm able to, shutting it without having our dog interfering with that process. One of the other reasons that we stop at our doorways and at any threshold is because we are breaking that energy. And what this does is it practices them not rushing through doorways, which is a big safety issue. We do not want them running out the front door, running out the car door. So we want them to have the self-restraint to be able to stop whenever they see that open doorway. So this is something we will practice a lot and something we encourage you to practice as much as possible in the home. Now this can be a doorway, it can be a hallway, it can be a break from linoleum to carpet. These are all physical thresholds that they can visualize that we can use to practice our training opportunities. Let's go. So whenever we have our dog sit, remember that break command is the cue to move. It is not our legs moving. It is not that door opening. And again, we practice breaking the energy so that we can have them bring the focus back to us and not pushing it out into whatever's distracting them out there. So, and take as many opportunities as possible to practice keeping your dog still while you move around them. So we're going to continue demonstrating our leash manners. We're going to walk out into the yard here a little bit. And like I said earlier, we want our dog to be on our right and just a little bit behind us. So anytime her nose, let's go, sit. Anytime her nose goes to pass my midline, I'm just going to ask her to sit. Let's go. And sit. Let's go. And sit. Let's go. Let's go. And she's trying to figure out why I was asking her to walk into a fence at that point. Steady pressure up until she sits, and then I will release. And she's demonstrating here that if your dog is distracted by something, and it takes a little bit longer for you to hold this pressure, that's fine. We're just going to hold this pressure in a command until she gives us our sit. As soon as she gives it, I'm going to release, and there's her reward. So we can use our verbal commands to ask them to sit, but the beauty of the leash is that we don't need to. We can continue our conversation while asking the dog to sit by communicating through the leash without having to go to our verbal commands. So we're just going to walk up and down the yard a little bit more, demonstrating the leash. Let's go. And so our goal is to always have a dog that walks calmly at our side, sits calmly, and stays there when we ask them to. Whenever your dog is escalating to the end of the leash, jumping, barking, we're just going to practice resetting to that default sit and calm. So if at any point you get distressed or you lose track, sit and be calm, reassess, and then continue on your way. We're going to go back into the cabin, demonstrate the door and the mat work one more time. And then we're going to let you go home with your dogs and continue practicing as much as you possibly can. Let's go. Again, going to stop at our doorway. I'm going to ask her to sit. The release is the reward. We're going to open the door. And again, that door opening is not her command to move. My legs moving, stepping in and out of the threshold are not her command to move. Not until she gets that break command is she gonna have permission to move. Let's go. Let's go. We're gonna bring her back on her place. We're gonna say place, sit, and stay. Now, whenever you relinquish control of the leash, or whenever you take her out of work mode and into slip leash mode, we're gonna remove it off of her nose. At this point, we can drop the leash and ask her to stay on the mat. So whenever we let go of the leash, we want to make sure we are taking them out of transition mode because we do not want them to learn they can remove it themselves. So anytime they're on the mat, anytime you put them in the car, take it off of their nose, or you're letting go of the leash, make sure you're taking it off of their nose. Oh my goodness, what do you think, baby girl? So I think we've covered the basics of what to expect from the training of your dog. Obviously, when we see you in person, we will go over any training questions you may have, any paperwork questions you may have. We're also going to show you in a little bit more detail what your dogs are going to be capable of. Every dog is different. Every dog learns at their own pace, and every dog is going to have their own quirks. Dog training is not about ticking each box on the checklist. It's about having a tool bag full of tools that you can use to address each situation. So if one tool doesn't work, we're going to go on to our next tool until we can properly communicate what it is we expect of our dogs from them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again on your follow-up.